All right, well, we've got former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, I think, ready to join us now. Thanks for being part of our program. We appreciate your time.
Sure.
It's only about a week and a half since terrorists came into Israel, slaughtering men, women and children, and yet here in Australia and other parts of the world, everyone's talking about Israel's duty to wage a just war. We want to ask you about what's going to happen in the next few days, but I'd love it if you just set the scene for us and give us context around what will happen going forward. You've been talking about not just Hamas, but you talk about Nazi Hamas. Just tell us why you use that phrase and set the scene for us as to what Israel are really dealing with here.
Well, a just war is a war that we annihilate Hamas, which is a Nazi. I never used that term before, but I'm using it now because that's precisely what Hamas is. We've seen babies shot point blank. We've seen people that were burnt alive, rape, severed heads, whole families wiped out. And this was a deliberate goal of slaughtering civilians. Whoever does that wants to essentially annihilate the Jewish people. And the only difference between them and the Nazis is that this time around, there's a state of Israel. So we're soon going to unleash our forces to destroy and kill Hamas to the very last militant.
Naftali, what have you made of the reaction of some in the West? And we've covered a little bit of it tonight, but, you know, we've had politicians here in Australia yesterday standing up, basically equating Hamas and Israel as though they were two sides of the same coin. You've had the explicit support of places like the US and the Prime Minister here in Australia, but there is definitely this anti-Semitic underbelly that is bubbling away in Western politics. How has that been taken by people in Israel?
Well, that is flat anti-Semitism and deep moral confusion. If someone does not make the distinction between terrorists who deliberately come and tear babies apart and shoot a dad that is hugging his wife and two children huddled under him and then shoot both of them, the three of them, and between a country going out and defending itself against these very atrocities, that person lacks the difference between good and evil. And that person needs to look into himself. I'm not in the business of explaining why people are anti-Semitic. They've been anti-Semitic for thousands of years, but this time around we've got a state of Israel, and I myself, as a former commando, soldier, fighter, and commander, am proud to be Israeli and proud that we're fighting back and we will win.
Naftali, what do you say to those, I think they're mainly in the West, who would say two wrongs don't make a right, this is only going to escalate matters? And how do you see this ending? Would you say this will only end once Israel has seen this successful extermination of Hamas, and until then, there will be no end to this war, to this conflict?
Well, we need the denazification of the Gaza Strip. We need to demilitarize the Gaza Strip, and we need to fight back. And it'll take time. It can take weeks, even months. And what I say to those hypocrites, some hypocrites in the West that say two bads don't make a good, I would say, fine, just imagine your family waiting in a shelter, having terrorists barge in, rape your children, and then kill them. What would you do?
Naftali, you've served as a commando in the IDF. Can you talk to us about what the ground war is going to look like. It's going to be, I imagine, incredibly difficult for Israeli soldiers. You've got a townscape that's been reduced to rubble. Hamas fighters don't wear a uniform, so to try to find them amongst all the rubble and the potential of, I imagine, booby traps, etc. Can you give us an idea of what IDF soldiers are going to be facing when they go into Gaza?
Yeah, you're precisely right. That's why we are encouraging the population and helping to encourage them to evacuate into safe zones. We don't want to kill civilians. We're not. We don't hold the same values as our enemies. We hold value of life. That's why we're telling them get out of there, and they have. By and large, most of the civilians have vacated the areas that there's going to be fighting. We're going to unleash tremendous amount of fire on these areas before we send our soldiers in to clean stuff up. So that's basically the process. People are asking, why are we so patient? And well, we're patient because we want the final civilians to get out of harm's way because we don't want to kill them.